Broadcasting live from the moon and back, this is The Coin Chat, the most trusted voice for all things cryptocurrency. Each week we dissect an important issue and cut through the noise and misinformation out there in the world of blockchain, cryptocurrency, and ICOs, capturing the facts that truly matter to you that will give you an edge in this fast-moving emerging market. The who, what, where, when, and how of what you need to know in crypto to get ahead so you don't get left behind. Now here are your co-hosts, financial and crypto experts Yuri Cataldo and Steve Good.
Hey, this is Steve Good on the Coin Chat.
With Yuri Cataldo as always.
And Happy New Year to everyone as we're cutting through the crap and cutting through the, what am I supposed to say? I can't even remember it anymore. I mean, we're cutting through the noise and misinformation to tell people what really matters. What really matters? Well,
really matters in crypto.
What really matters in crypto is the hard fork for Ethereum on the new upgrade called Constantinople. Happy New Year's to everybody. We're here to tell you what's happening with Ethereum hard fork and Constantinople, because I'm sure people are wondering, what the fork is this fork all about, and do we even need it, and what's going to happen to my coins and my wallets and all the other stuff people typically worry about. So here we are.
Here we are indeed. Not Istanbul, but Constantinople.
Right, which is the precursor, of course, to the next upgrade they're talking about doing, which is Casper. But, you know, I'm not sure why they've gone from the Byzantine upgrade and the Constantinople upgrade to eventually moving to a friendly ghost, but they're not implementing a ghost protocol.
No. Right. Yeah, I'm so curious and who comes up with these names. Are they like, let's just, like, is there an official naming person who's like, let's come up with these random names?
And all the days that I worked in software companies, there were always these weird names, naming protocols, and you kind of wondered who came up with this stuff.
Yeah, like just someone who's really into history.
Oh, I'm not even going to get started about this. So there was a software company, and those of you listening that might know about this one, is they had this concept of this thing called the layer cake. And it was some woman in marketing who talked about, you know, who's a baker, and she knew about the different layers of a cake, and that was her easiest way of describing what was happening in software for this particular upgrade, creating lots of layers. So the whole company was walking around talking about the layer cake version. It's like, oh my God, serious.
Yeah, that's how it usually comes down to. So all right, so this upgrade. So why? First off, why is Ethereum doing this hard fork upgrade?
Okay, so let's roll back for 1 second on the hard fork thing, because I've seen a lot of questions out there. Do I need to be worried about my coins? And because hard forks usually imply the coin splitting into two. It oftentimes implies that the previous blockchain is no longer valid, which of course is true, but that your coins have to move somewhere else and all that stuff, because normally hard forks have all sorts of crazy stuff. But we did talk about this in a very early episode, which I don't even think was a video episode, called What the Fork is a Fork? Ice-T in Trouble, I think was the episode. So it might have been video.
Yes.
It's a long time ago. But interestingly, so going back just to that episode for a moment, Ether has had 4 previous hard forks. And they've gone through like a normal software upgrade. So a hard fork is only a hard fork because of the fact that it's not backwards compatible with the rest of the blockchain. That's the key thing, where soft forks continue on and you can still look back at the previous blocks. But the reason people get worried about hard forks is because where they split. And that only happened once with Ether, and that was back in the early days of the DAO, where it split between Ether and Ethereum Classic. But that's the only time it's happened. But have all the consensus from the developers. I think you mentioned that there's an exchange that's now given support for it.
Yes, Binance actually announced yesterday that they would be accepting this hard fork, and so you don't have to worry about it. But
so wallets
100% support on that.
Wallets essentially shouldn't have any issue at all, so long as the consensus remains and the developers don't decide to fork the coin between those implementing these new Ethereum Implementation Proposals, EIPs, and those who say, I don't want to do it. There isn't any dissent out there that I've seen to suggest such a thing. So for now, just leave your coins in your Ether wallet and they'll still be there, just like every other previous hard fork that's occurred in the Ether universe.
Right.
So that leads me to the next point. There's 5 EIPs you asked about.
Yes.
I did my research. And I'll give a quick summary, and I won't go into all the details, but if people wanted us to do a more detailed episode, give us a like, give us some comments in the description below for those of you on YouTube, or just jump into our Telegram channel, let us know, or send us an email. Details we'll put at the end of the video, and of course, we'll just let people know, or in the end of the audio. But in essence, there's 5 EIPs, Ethereum Improvement Proposals.
Okay.
And by the way, it's occurring at height 7,080,000. So that's that's where it's occurring, at that block number, roughly. So here's what happens. There's EIP 145, which is a good thing. We're going to love this. They're going to decrease the gas price.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So it's really about decreasing gas price and increasing the efficiency in the way the smart contracts are run, which is great because, why should we pay more than we should have to pay?
Wait. Stop for 1 second. Yeah. We talked about that, but what is the gas for people who are just tuning in for the first time?
Well,
what does the gas price affect?
Well, so what's the gas price is exactly that. In this case, it's a transaction fee. And in order to make a transaction go through the Ether network, you can send the minimum or you can send a lot of gas. The more gas you send, the faster the transaction goes through the network. And there are certain circumstances where you want to prioritize a transaction to go faster, like if the network's clogged up and there's lots of transactions going on, sending more gas will just make sure that yours gets prioritized over others. But related to that, there's 2 things, right? There's EIP 145, which is reducing the gas as it relates to smart contracts and how they transact so that they're more efficient. There's an EIP 1052, which is to increase the efficiency of the smart contracts and the verification process so that it speeds it up, because ultimately we want to be cheaper and faster. And related to that, actually, which is really cool, is EIP 1283, which is a net metering to reduce the gas usage on the network. What that means is that effectively, if you don't need to use as much gas as you've specified, it will try to reduce it for you.
Okay.
That's my understanding of it anyway. So if I've got it wrong out there, anybody that's a techie, don't troll me, just help me. But that's my understanding of those 3. And that's really, really important, because what that means is we're getting a more efficient network that's running at a cheaper rate, which is good because we want to be able to do that. Now, here's the really cool stuff that I like the most, which is all about speeding it up. Now, of course, you asked, why are they doing these things? Well, one of the big factors is that Neo, Cardano, EOS, people say, oh, yeah, but they're faster, they're cheaper. People talk about Neo being cheaper, EOS being faster. Well, what they're doing is they're addressing all of these things in these 5 improvements. And they're doing it very specifically to remain competitive and to be as good as they can be. So the last 2, EIP 1014, is to improve the performance and the throughput by doing some of the transaction off-chain. Now, I would love to do a whole episode on just off-chain versus on-chain, because we probably need someone like Joe to come back on the show and help us through it, because it is complicated, it's technical, but it's a way of just, for simple purposes, it's a way to expedite transactions and make them just a lot faster. And performance improvement, speed of transactions is a major thing, because that means that we have more transactions we can do per second, per minute, and that's always been a big criticism of the Ethereum network. The last one is the most interesting one, and I think that anybody who's been following the price of Ether recently, watching it move significantly upwards in percentages of 8 to 10% up, and is up 80% since it hit its low of $80 just a month ago. It's a phenomenal amount of increase. Now here's why. So this all comes back to EIP 1234. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, so 1, 2, 3, 4 is interesting. So what's happening present day is that when you are a miner and you are mining to find the transactions and to verify them, the one who finds and solves that particular block gets paid a reward. And it was 3 Ether to find the block. And what they've decided to do is to reduce it to 2. Now, people would say, but that doesn't sound very good for the miners. But bearing in mind, we've just sped the network up and we're giving them 2 but a faster network, it means they probably could make more money, and that's a good thing for them. But the other thing is that we're slowing down the total amount of crypto that's being Ether that's being released into the market. So we're reducing the supply from what it was anticipated to a lower future amount in the near term.
Okay.
So if you look at basic supply and demand, the supply is going to reduce. If demand remains the same, the price would go up. And that's exactly what's going on, is people anticipating that. Now, the other thing that's related to this is what's called, they've changed the difficulty, they've delayed the difficulty bomb. No, that's what it's called, the difficulty bomb. So the difficulty bomb is this concept that the harder it gets over time to mine, eventually it gets to the point where you reach what's called the ice age, which is it takes so long to mine a block that actually don't mine anything at all. And that's a proof of work problem that they've solved previously, and now they've solved it again by extending out that time to a much longer period. The reason they've done that is specifically because they want to move from proof of work, which is where we are now, and Constantinople will retain us in that world. But we're going to move eventually to Casper, which is a proof of stake model. And the question, of course, you're probably going to ask me next is, so what's the significance of moving to proof of stake? So go ahead and ask.
So what's the significance of moving to proof of stake versus where it's at now?
Right. So the great question. So the answer is we've just seen a perfect example of why you don't want to be on a proof of work model, which is the hash war between Bitcoin Cash and the other party. Did Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, whatever they're called. So clearly that kind of hash war isn't desirable. So Ether's goal of moving to proof of stake was always there for a while. This just ratifies another example of why we don't want to be in a proof of work environment. If people are going to be out there trying to spin off forks and trying to create wars, we don't want that. And the proof of work enables that process. Proof of stake doesn't. So what they're trying to do is create a much more stabilized environment. So this last improvement process, 1, 2, 3, 4, is really about reducing the number of blocks, which is reducing the total supply to a slower rate of release over time. So it's squeezing supply while demand continues to remain fixed or increasing, which will drive the price up. And that's good. And along with that, trying to delay the bomb that was in there, so that it basically allows us to mine for a longer period of time to give them the time they need as developers to get Casper rolled out as a future hard fork, which will be whenever they're ready.
Right.
So
good.
That's the essence of it. I really wanted to kind of help people with this, because I know there's a lot of questions out there about this, and hopefully that was simple enough, because it is. If you go into the actual proposals, they're complex. We will put the links to each of the actual proposals from the Ethereum GitHub website, whatever it is. I've got the links already. I will put them in the descriptions below for people on YouTube so they can have a look at them. Okay. Ask me anything, Yuri.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah. Well, you did a very good job describing what they are. So the dates are potentially between January 14th and 16th.
Right.
Is there something people should do who are looking to buy Ethereum or holding Ethereum that they should do before this goes through at this time?
I think, like anything, it's a good point. Like anything, we have to be diligent about making sure our coins are safe and they're secure. Where possible, keep them in offline wallets. Make sure your offline wallet provider, Ledger, Trezor, or KeepKey, for example, are indicating support for the hard fork, which surely they will do. That shouldn't be an issue, but just double check.
Right.
If you're using blockchain.info or Jax or Coinomi, verify that they're doing it. Binance has already announced it. Check with the exchanges where your coins are sitting. And that, to be honest, that's all we should have to do for this particular hard fork, because there is no contention out there. This was something that was spawned off of some time. It's been discussed at DevCon 4 recently last year.